Before I know it, Danny's out of the arcade and back on the bike, and I'm gunning the throttle and motoring out of Old Compton Street before chucking a left into St Martin's Lane. By the time Plod gets to finish his bacon sandwich, we'll be out of Soho and on our way back home. Danny's definitely the man when it comes to killing. Cool as a cucumber and as cold as ice. Ain't no blood running through those veins, just hatred and greed, for which at this moment I'm truly thankful. We reached the safety of Canning Town without a glitch, and at a pre-arranged meeting hook up with a trusted pal Monksy, who's on hand to take our guns and clobber. After sending the bike for a swim in the docks, we both scrub up roadside before putting on clean clobber and going our separate ways. And that's how easy it is to set up a hit. All you need is plenty of arsehole and the right tools. It ain't rocket science. To be honest, it ain't any kind of science. It's just kill him. It's what we do. Woke up this morning in a stinking sweat after another poxy night's kip. Maltese Tony? Couldn't give a toss about that mug. Mullering a maggot for dough ain't no harder than wiping crap off your shoes. He was over 21, he knew the rules. And carrying on like that, he was never going to make old bones. Nah. The reason I woke up in such a state is I'm still a prisoner of my past. The ghosts just won't let me be. It ain't even like they only come when I'm asleep. They're with me all day, every day. Very rare I get any fucking respite. I fight my enemies in the day and my demons at night. Childhood guilt can be such a destructive emotion, but I have to be strong and keep moving forward. Let's face it, faint heart never won anything, let alone fair lady. Having showered, I'm in serious need of a livener, so I bang up a couple of smallish hits of Charlie. Don't want to be acting like no junkie. Discreetly wired is the order of the day. Of course, I ain't always been putting this crap up my nose. Never took anything until a few years ago. But I need it now, for not only does it ease the pain, it also helps deaden the remorse, which is far more important for me. It's alright for Danny, he's a psychopath. The bloke ain't got any remorse in the hurting department. But me, I feel bad about some of the people we've had to give it to. I mean, not all of them, mind. Most of them were slags and I don't give them a second thought. But when you've got to hurt a good man, it can be painful. For both parties. And believe me, the Charlie does help. 15 minutes later, I'm gunning it large out of my dockside apartment's underground car park in my Porsche. Top down, stereo on full blast with Bird blowing some super spade madness out of his plastic auto. Ain't been another jazzman white or black fit enough to even lick the spit off his mouthpiece. Bollocks to this, I need another line. Sob being discreetly wired. I ease slowly to a stop outside Tubby Isaac's world-famous jellied eel stall that sits at the bottom end of long-demolished back alleys where Jack did his ripping back in days of yore. A man I recognise approaches warily from a side street. He's casually dressed and carrying a sports holdall. After giving me a very discreet nod, he casually climbs into the passenger side of my car and we shake hands. Pulling away, I check my rearview mirror and move off, before pulling back into the curb about a few hundred yards up the road to let the bagman out. Inside a holdall now sitting on the front passenger side floor is 200 grand. One of my best pals, Dave, is a front wheel skid, but like the flame grilled whopper, he ain't what you would call kosher. Dave's a long firmer. That's to say, he's a slippery bloke who buys up companies that ain't worth a penny and rebuilds their credit by pumping his own dough through 'em. Once all is sweet, he worms his way into suppliers and wholesalers and gains their confidence to run up huge debts before pulling the rug from underneath them and having it on his toes. But Dave's a con man, not a villain, and he don't like mixing it in the ring with the likes of us. And apart from the fact that he walks a crooked mile, he ain't got a bad bone in his entire body. He's all about the bubbly and the crack. He'll do anything to raise a laugh. For instance, his old man, who's some top rabbi, cut him out of his will because he'd shacked up with some lady from Roman Road. So to spite him, Dave became a tugger. That's to say, he's tied one end of a piece of elastic to the top end of his Corey and the other end to his right thigh, and strolled about with it tugging at his manhood for 18 months. The bloke's got some Corey. In fact, he's hung like a bloody hoover. Anyway, when he was satisfied that the sheathing had been stretched far enough over his helmet to constitute a foreskin, he went straight round to his old man's synagogue and waggled his newly restored Corey at him through the letterbox. On catching sight of his son's new uncut Corey poking at him, Dave's old man cast a desperate look skyward for some help from the Almighty, gave out a little groan and then keeled over onto the carpet of a suspected heart attack. Priceless entertainment. That's why I love Dave to death. In fact, I'm godfather to his chavies. But Danny despises him. Firstly, because he's Jewish, but secondly, because he's cleverer than Danny. And thirdly, because his house is bigger. Come to think of it, his hooter's bigger as well. But I don't think that's a bone of contention. Bethnal Green, another absolute carsy. Boarded up buildings and swag shops, fronted by a few manky fruit and veg stalls and run by sour-faced cockneys with bulging wallets and caravans in Clacton. This has always been a poxy part of town. Swinging London. The only thing that's ever swung around here is us criminals on the end of the hangman's rope. Pulling into a quiet cul-de-sac, I'm now in full sight of my current destination. A mock Tudor 2 up 2 down ex-council house number. The outside done right up to the nines, complete with Greco-Roman columns, a small gravel drive, and a moody-looking knee-high sculpture of a man who to my eyes looks like Moore's murderer Ian Brady. Giving my nut a chance, I'll take a crafty butcher's around, not just for the old Bill, but also for Danny's wife Tina, because this ain't just our safe house, it's also where Danny keeps his mole Kelly Moore, shackled and under the cosh. Nearly every married East End gangster I know has a mole. Basically, they're just expensively painted shag pieces, whose only purpose in life seems to be keeping the house clean, staying stummo and swallowing, but not necessarily in that order. The only difference with Danny's setup is that Kelly Moore's his first cousin. In straight terms, that means he's slipping a goldfish to his own flesh and blood. I mean, that can't be right. Look what inbreeding's done to the royals. The front doorbell chimes, the opening bars of Evita, and presently the door's opened by Kelly Moore, glammed up like she's going out on the game, and peering out from under the roof of a strawberry blonde beehive that resembles a stick of candy floss. Every day's a bad hair day in Lady Gangsterland. "Hello, Kelly," I murmur, strolling straight through into the living room to find Danny sitting alone in the dark as usual, staring at his reflection in a turned-off large-screen TV, as usual. Flopping down into an oversized leather Chesterfield chair opposite, I drop the holdall to my side, my nut flicking through last night's bit of graft. "How'd you kip?" says Danny, making no attempt at eye contact. "Nah, not at all," I say. "Coffee!" he calls out loudly, and in hardly any time at all, Kelly appears, dutifully proffering 2 scalding beverages. "Too bloody hot," he growls, thrusting his cup back at her to blow on, which she does in the manner of a small chavvy blowing bubbles. "How did I kip last night, Kelly?" he growls again. "Like a baby, why?" "Don't ask stupid bloody questions. Now get back in the kitchen, we're talking business." Handing Danny back the cold coffee, she does as she's told without a murmur. How I detest this man's lack of manners. And while I appreciate that silence equals compliance, I never say anything. But Kelly suffers it. I don't know how, because I'm buggered if I would. Probably writes the constant humiliation off against the fox fur coats and Cartier watches. And who am I to judge? "Easy bit of graft last night or what?" says Danny. "In and out," I say. "Yeah, in the back of his head and out the front." Stevie, Danny's year younger brother, is out on home leave. His first steps on Civvy Street after an 18-month stretch from malicious wounding. So it's a night out for the boys. The whole firm's here. Me, Danny, Stevie and Frankie Simmons, who's as staunch as a tourniquet, and a good pal of Danny's from way back. After an Italian supper, the 4 of us wash up in the Peacock, an all-night drinker in Custom House, to catch up on war stories and what's what. Charlie's in abundance, Mooey Joey's flowing non-stop down our greedy throats, and appropriate respect is shown by everyone who passes by, which means everything is good and pleasant. A little firm of armed robbers from Stratford come bowling in, Larry as Mary. There's Darky George, Tony Taroni and Mookie Wilson. Very good blaggers, quick on the bag but not our cup of tea. Rumour has it they've just done a real tasty bit of graft, security van and well over 1 million readies. But like all armed robbers, they ain't got a clue what to do with the dough, except spend it on crap. Hence, they keep sending us over bottle after bottle of bubbly. We acknowledge the respect and the night prowls on. "Hello, Frankie," says Darky, washing up his hands just as Frankie strolls into the toilet, some 50 feet or so from where we're partying. "All right, Darky," says Frankie. "How long's Stevie been out?" "We've just got a bit of home leave, Darky." "Oh, I heard he was making tea for the screws in there." "What are you talking about?" That's what I heard. Now there's insults and there's insults, and proper people in the nick don't make tea for screws, they make trouble. You might as well call a man a nonce case as a screws boy, and an insult to one is an insult to all. So Frankie does the right thing and chins Darky, knocking him down into the nearest pisser. Then he comes back into the company without saying a word, until all of a sudden he lets out a loud sigh and collapses. Well, we just think he's out of the game and pull him to his feet. I've been plunged, he groans. It was Darky George. Knowing that it's well bang on top, their firm's already scarpering for the front door. But down to more luck than judgment, I managed to catch Tony Teroni with a champagne bottle across the back of his canister, one of the ones they sent over. Down he goes like a Premiership footballer, while his two pals run off leaving him. A terrible dog-stroke thing to do. In a frenzied atmosphere, a friendly hand slips Danny a stiletto. He picks up Teroni's head and rams the blade right through the back of his neck, just missing his windpipe and leaving me go, fuck me. Looks just like Frankenstein. Helped out by an assortment of unseen fists and boots, we proceed to smash the granny out of him, stomping him to near death before carrying him outside and tossing him over the wall like a sack of crap. Then without a backward glance, we climb into our motor and put the pedal down sharpish to get Frankie to Newham Hospital. "What the bloody hell's all that about, Frankie?" says Danny. "Well, Darky George reckoned that Stevie was jamming for the screws in the nick, so I chinned him." "Fuck's sake." "I'll do him," says Stevie. But Stevie's out on home leave, so he can't afford to get nicked. And so, after dropping off Frankie, we also bid our farewells to Stevie. A few hours later, me and Danny are plotted up not far from Darky George's flat, hoping he's on his way home. Danny wants to do him properly, end of, pushing up daisies. You see how this can escalate from nothing. For all we know, Darky could have been messing about, but when you're on the Charlie and booze, a careless word said in jest can quickly lead to paranoia. "I hope he shows," says Danny. "Well, I can't believe they ran and left Teroni," I say. "I heard that Darky's fearless on the pavement." "Fearless? I'll show him what fearless is. His barnet will turn white. He'll end up looking like Uncle Ben by the time I'm finished with him." Our patience pays off. Just before the sun rises, along comes Darky, and like so many others about to become victims, he don't have a clue it's bang on him. Not only that, he's so messed up he can't see more than 2 feet in front of him. In the meantime, we're ready to rock and roll. So now it's off, and we're into Darky like a pair of jackals, ready to pull a wildebeest to pieces. The poor bloke don't have a chance. Using a small, silent semi-automatic, I lodge a bullet in the back of his left leg, which smashes his kneecap, causing him to fall forward with barely a murmur. Then, with moonlight dripping evil in his eyes, Danny weighs into him again and again, full pelt in the back and shoulders with a sharpened fireman's axe. 32 times in all, carving deep, blubber-pink chunks out of Darky's skin. "Let's ping, he's in a bad way," I shout. But Danny ain't listening. He's totally lost in his madness. The madness of a man possessed by demons that make mine look like angels of mercy. And insults from Darky George are a transgression too far. And so to round the punishment off, he pulls out a Stanley knife and slices off Darky's eyelids, handing one of them to me as a souvenir, as we drive away, leaving Darky wide-eyed and legless, less than 2 feet from the safety of his front door.